All right, welcome to another deep dive. We're going to be going deep on something that's pretty unsettling. SystemBC RAT on Linux. Now, this is a big one for anyone out there running Linux servers or cloud services. Yeah, even those smart devices around your house could be vulnerable to this.
Yeah, and it's a pretty significant development. I mean, we're seeing this threat, traditionally it was a Windows thing, but now it's evolving to target Linux, a platform that's, for a long time been considered, really secure.
Right, right. Okay, so for those of us, me included sometimes, who aren't exactly fluent in cybersecurity lingo, what exactly is SystemBC? It sounds like something straight out of a, science fiction movie.
Well, it might sound like fiction, but it's definitely real. And it's a problem. SystemBC is what we call a remote access Trojan, or as we like to shorten it, a RAT. You can think of it like a secret, like a hidden back door that lets attackers kind of just slip into your systems without you even knowing.
So it's not just like a harmless little bug or something. Like, what kind of damage can this thing actually do?
Well, this is where things get really worrisome. I mean, SystemBC on Linux, it's not just about stealing some random data. Think about it. It could get a hold of your SSH keys. And if that happens, well, attackers would have full control, complete control of your servers. And from there, well, who knows what they could do.
Wow, yeah, that's not a good scenario.
Hmm.
And this report we've been digging into, it highlights that this SystemBC uses really strong encryption, like military-grade stuff, to hide its communication. So it's almost impossible to detect. It really is like a ninja, sneaking in completely undetected.
Yeah, that's a pretty good analogy. I mean, traditional security measures, the kind most people have, they just don't see it coming. And that's why it's so important to understand how it spreads and what exactly makes our system so vulnerable to it in the first place.
So let's talk about those vulnerabilities then. This report, it mentions unpatched vulnerabilities as a major culprit. Now, I get that software can have flaws, but is it really as simple as just forgetting to update things?
You'd be surprised. Failing to patch those holes, those little cracks in your software, it's essentially like leaving the front door to your house wide open. Attackers, they're out there constantly scanning for these weaknesses. And SystemBC, well, it's ready to exploit them, just waiting for the chance.
Right, okay. But wouldn't strong passwords at least keep those attackers out?
Well, unfortunately, no. Strong passwords are definitely important, don't get me wrong, but they're not like foolproof. You know what I mean? The report also points to weak SSH credentials as another major vulnerability.
Hold on, before we go any further, could you remind me, and probably some of our listeners, what exactly is SSH again?
Oh, right. Good point. So SSH, it stands for Secure Shell. It's basically a way to access computers remotely, almost like a digital doorway. But if you're guarding those doorways with flimsy passwords, well, then attackers can just waltz right in.
So it's almost like having, some super high-tech security system for your house, but then you just write the code down on a sticky note and slap it on the front door.
Yeah, exactly. Weak passwords basically just make all that fancy security completely useless. And it's not just individuals that need to watch out. Organizations, they really need to step up their game too, especially when it comes to this thing called network segmentation.
Okay, network segmentation. Now that sounds pretty technical. Could you maybe break that down for us? Maybe with an analogy or something?
Sure. Okay, so picture your house again. Now imagine one room catches fire. You wouldn't want those flames to just spread to the whole house, right? Well, network segmentation, it's kind of like having firewalls between all those rooms, containing the damage.
Ah, I see. So if one part of the network it gets compromised, the whole thing doesn't just go up in smoke.
Precisely. By separating your network into these smaller, isolated sections, you can limit how bad a breach can actually get. It's like damage control, but for the digital world.
Okay, that makes sense. So unpatched vulnerabilities, weak passwords, and not having good network segmentation. That's kind of creating all these openings for SystemBC to slip in. But how does this sneaky malware actually spread? Like, what are the main ways it actually infects systems?
Well, there are a few common ways it gets in, a few attack vectors to watch out for. One is exploiting those vulnerabilities we just talked about, like finding that one loose brick in the wall and just prying it open. Another is, you've probably heard of these, phishing campaigns. These are where attackers disguise malicious emails to look like they're totally legit messages.
Oh man, those phishing emails. I've seen some that look so real it's scary. So if you click a bad link, or you open a file that's infected, you're basically giving SystemBC a free pass into your system.
Yeah, pretty much. And then you've got these things called supply chain attacks, and these are even sneakier. This is where attackers manage to inject malware into legitimate software, so it looks safe, but it's not.
That's a disturbing thought.
Yeah.
It's like ordering takeout and ending up with food poisoning. You think you're getting a nice meal, but it turns out it makes you sick. So how do we even start to defend ourselves against something that's so sneaky and so widespread? Like, is there even any hope? I mean, it's a lot, right?
Mm.
But thankfully, this report, it does give some really good advice on how to detect this stuff and how to actually mitigate the threats. I'm ready. Tell me more.
Okay, well, the first thing to remember is early detection. I mean, that's key. Given how sneaky SystemBC can be, we really got to be proactive in figuring out if our systems have been compromised. And one really powerful technique is this thing called behavioral analysis.
Behavioral analysis. So we're talking about like profiling criminals, but for malware.
Yeah, exactly. So instead of just looking for those known malware signatures, behavioral analysis, it looks for anything out of the ordinary, anything unusual happening inside your system. Think of it like, you go out to your garden and you see some strange footprints. It's a sign that something might be wrong.
Okay, so we're playing detective here, digital detectives. But what kind of footprints should we be looking out for? Like in our digital garden, I mean. What are some red flags that might mean we've got System BC?
Well, you might see a sudden, like a big spike in network traffic. That could be a sign that data is being siphoned off, being exfiltrated. Or you might see weird processes running in the background, especially those that are using up a lot of your system resources. That could be a sign of something malicious going on.
Okay, so we're on the lookout for suspicious behavior, but how can we actually keep an eye on our systems? Like, are there tools that can help us with this?
Oh, yeah, definitely. You've got intrusion detection systems. We call them IDSs. Those are like security cameras, but for your whole network. They're always scanning, looking for suspicious patterns, and they'll alert you if they see anything that looks like a threat.
So it's like having a guard dog, but for your computer. It barks when it senses danger. I like it. What else can we do to be proactive in this fight against System BC?
Okay, so we've talked about how important it is to keep patching those vulnerabilities right. But on top of that, multi-factor authentication, MFA, that is a must-have.
MFA,
Oh.
right. That's where you need more than just a password to log in, right?
Right.
You need a code from your phone or like a fingerprint scan or something.
Exactly. It adds a whole other layer of security, making it much, much harder for those attackers to get in, even if they do manage to steal your password.
It's like having two locks on your front door.
Mm.
Right. So patching, MFA, network segmentation, strong passwords. Feels like we're building Fort Knox here. Anything else we can add to our arsenal?
There's one more thing. This report, it talks about EDR, endpoint detection and response. This is a pretty powerful tool.
EDR. Okay, that's a new one. What's so special about this EDR compared to, like regular antivirus software?
Well, think of your antivirus as like a basic security guard. Yeah. EDR, that's like having a whole team of like highly trained security specialists on call 24/7. They don't just look for known threats, they're watching everything all the time, and if they see anything suspicious, they can automatically neutralize the threat, like right then and there.
Wow, that's impressive. So it's like having a rapid response team ready to jump into action before any real damage is done. So
Right.
basically, we're layering all these security measures on top of each other, right?
Yeah.
Patching, MFA, network segmentation, EDR, all working together to create this like multi-layered defense system.
Exactly. But it's important to remember, technology, it can only do so much. Even with all the best security in the world, human error can still leave us wide open to attack.
That's true. We're only human. We all make mistakes. So how do we address that human element? When it comes to cybersecurity, I mean.
Well, education and awareness are really, really important. I mean, we need to be aware of the tricks attackers use, like those phishing emails we were just talking about. Thinking twice before we click on something, being wary of suspicious links, being careful about what information we share. Those little things can make a huge difference.
Yeah, it's like being street smart, but for the internet.
Mm.
We've got to be aware of our surroundings and be on the lookout for danger. So it's not enough to just have the latest and greatest security software. It's also about building a culture of security awareness.
Right. It really does feel like a total shift in mindset is needed. It's not just about relying on technology to be our savior. We have to actually participate, take an active role in our own security.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the most important takeaways for everyone listening. It's a shared responsibility. It's not just on one person or one group. Individuals, organizations, we all have to be in this together. So before we wrap things up, I think it would be helpful to just go over those key steps one more time, the things we can do to protect ourselves from the System C on Linux. It's a lot of information, so having a clear action plan is really important.
Yeah, good idea. Okay, so first things first, stay up to date with those software updates. I know it sounds basic, but it's crucial. Patch those vulnerabilities before those attackers can get to them. It might seem like a pain, but it's so worth it.
Right. No more hitting that snooze button on those update notifications.
Mm.
And of course, we can't forget about strong passwords and multi-factor authentication. Those are essential for keeping those digital doors locked tight.
Exactly. Think of it as adding layers of protection to all your online accounts. And for anyone out there managing networks, don't underestimate network segmentation. It's like building those firewalls right inside your system to contain any potential damage.
And if you really want to go all out, EDR, right, that
Mm.
endpoint detection and response, it's like having that elite security force, always watching, always ready to jump in.
That's right. But even beyond all the technical stuff, just remembering that staying informed and being aware of what's happening out there, that's huge. I mean, the threat landscape is constantly shifting, right?
It's like being a traveler in a new country. You have to learn the customs, know what to watch out for, how to stay safe, and it's the same with the digital world.
That's a great analogy. And here's one final thought to leave you with. Think of cybersecurity as not like a destination, but like a journey, you know? The threats are constantly evolving, so we have to be adaptable and stay vigilant and be proactive if we want to stay safe.
Well said. This has been a really insightful deep dive, and if I'm being honest, a little bit unnerving. But at least now we have the knowledge and we have a plan, right? So to everyone listening, thank you for joining us as we explore this whole system BC on Linux threat. Stay safe out there, stay informed, and remember, your digital well-being, it's worth protecting.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And until next time, stay curious and stay secure.